everyone. I hope you're doing well today. Today we're going to walk through lessons 85 through 88. So let's get started. This week you're going to need your lessons manual, the student worksheet book, the math card games manual with the game cards, the base 10 picture cards, the place value cards, and the abacus. This week, your child is going to have a review lesson. They're going to work on comparison problems and work on multi-digit subtraction. Let's get started by opening up to lesson 85. Lesson 85 is a review lesson. You're only going to want to give your child one of the worksheets, either 53A or 53B. Now, if your child does well on this review lesson, you're going to want to just move on to the next lesson the next day. But if your child struggles on this worksheet or parts of the worksheet, discuss with them their errors to find out why they made that mistake. What you're looking for is understanding. If your child made a silly mistake, that's okay, just move on. But if your child doesn't understand something, you do need to go back and review. If your child has forgotten something, or if your child is unsure about something, again, you'll want to go back and review previous lessons as well. When you go back to those previous lessons, you can do a full lesson or a part of the lesson, focusing on what your child struggled with to be sure that they understood the material. Then, if you wish, you can go ahead and give your child the second worksheet to double check that they got that material. Now, you don't want to give the second worksheet the same day they do the review. You want to give them some time, allow some time to elapse before giving them the next worksheet to make sure that the material is completely understood and in their long-term memory, not just in their short-term memory. Just as I usually do, I'm going to go through the problems that's on this worksheet and provide lesson numbers that you can go back and review with your child. Now, if your child struggled with problem 1, which is the 47 minus 20, review lesson 54. If your child struggled with problem 2, 87 minus 85, also review lesson 54. For problem 3, which is 83 plus 28, you can review lessons 20 and 21. For problem 4, which is 1/2 hour plus 1/2 hour, you can look at lesson 83. For problem 5, 13 minus 4, you can take a look at lessons 47, 48, and 49. For problem 6, which is 11 minus 6, you can review lessons 45, 46, 48, and 49. For problems 7 through 9, which is writing the time, you can take a look at lessons 83 and 84. For problems 10 through 12, where they're drawing the hands on the clock, you can take a look at lessons 82, 83, and 84. For problem 13, which is the word problem, review lesson 58. For problems 14 through 17, which are the comparison problems, you can take a look at lessons 83 and 84, or you might want to review the explanations to the right of that section. And let me read that to you real quick. It says, even though this concept was not explicitly taught, time sequencing is an application of what has been taught. So you may be able to review concepts from lesson 83 and 84, but really this comparison problem, if their struggle is the logic through it, you might need to talk through that. For problem 18, which is where they're writing the number out in words, take a look at lesson 30. Now there are 2 math card games listed for this lesson. The corners game, which you've played previously, and we have a blog for it. So if you need a refresher, you can go back to our website and look at the blog. The second game is subtraction bingo game. And you played this game in lesson 51. We also have a blog for that game as well. So feel free to go back to our website to review how that game is played. All right, well, let's go ahead and turn to lesson 86. In this lesson for the warm-up, you're going to use the base 10 picture cards. Now, since it's been a little while since you've used the base 10, let me give you a reminder of what they are. Here's the 1, here's the 100, the thousands, and the tens. Now, for the warm-up, you are going to show your child the base 10, or the 10 base 10 picture card, and say, suppose I have 80 of these cards. How much would that show? Now, because it's been a while since your child has covered place value, allow your child to maybe use the abacus as they consider their answer. Try not to give too many hints as your child works to figure that out. Now, if your child really does struggle, you can step back that question and say, hey, if I have 10 of these cards, 10 tens, how many would that be? And that would be 100, right? So then once you figure that out, then go from there. So if I had 80, picture 10 cards, or 10, if I had 80 groups of tens, that would be how many? The second paragraph is comparing numbers. If your child struggles, have them write down the numbers so that they can view them, see them, and or they can use the abacus as well. And the third paragraph is having your child calculate fairly easy addition problems in the thousands. If your child struggles, again, back it up again. So the first question is, what is 1,000 plus 5,000? If they're struggling with that, pull it back and say, hey, okay, what is 1 plus 5? 6. What is 10 plus 50? Or 110 plus 510? That would be 6 tens. Or what is 100 plus 500? 600. So let them see that pattern so that they were able to solve that 1,000 plus 5,000. Now, some children get overwhelmed with place values. Taking it back to the basics will many times allow that child to see the pattern and help them solve those problems. After the warm-up, you're going to give your child worksheet 54, and the remainder of the lesson is actually going to be working through many of those problems, those word problems on worksheet 54. You can take a look at the explanation section in the middle of the first page of the lesson. It says, this lesson is a mixture of compare problems to discourage the child from memorizing a particular procedure. You will also read to your child what that worksheet is about. Look at the paragraph under the section labeled worksheet 54. The very last sentence says this: the problems for today and in the next lesson are compare problems. This means we will compare two things and think about which is longer, shorter, taller, more, less, fewer, and so on. Once your child knows what they're going to be doing on this worksheet, then you're going ahead and let them start with problem 1. The first thing you're going to have them do is read through that problem several times. You're going to want to get your child in the habit of reading problems, word problems, more than once, even if the word problem is easy. Getting them in that habit so that when they see a word problem, they get in the habit of reading through that several times before they even think about solving it. Then you're going to have your child use their abacus to show the problem on their abacus. And a picture of what that will look like is on the bottom of the first page of the lesson. Then you're going to have your child fill in the part whole circles as shown at the bottom of the first page of the lesson. Then your child will build an equation and solve the equation, therefore solving the word problem. Now on the top of the second page of the lesson is a fabulous model of how to use part whole circles for word problems. So let's dissect this for just a moment. So here we have the model that's shown on the top of the second page of the lesson. We have the big circle up on top, which is the larger set, the smaller set, and then the difference. So let me apply that to the word problem that we just did, problem number 1. Word problem number one says this: Mr. Black is 6 feet tall. His son is 4 feet tall. How much taller is the father? So we're going to take segments at a time. Mr. Black is 6 feet tall. Now we're going to ask questions. Is this the larger set? Is 6 feet the smaller set? Or is 6 feet the difference? 6 feet in this particular word problem will be the larger set. So we're going to put 6 in that top larger circle. All right, we're going to now dissect that second section of this word problem. His son is 4 feet tall. So we already know the larger set. So 4 feet is going to fit in either the smaller set or the difference. Which circle does it go into? Well, it goes into the smaller set. So we're going to put that 4 in the smaller set. That means what we're missing is how much taller is the father. So what is the difference? 6 minus 4, or subtracting 4 from 6, is 2. So the difference is 2. And then we would put the 2 in the difference circle. Now that your child knows how to evaluate a word problem, they're going to apply that information to problem 2. Again, have your child read through that word problem several times before solving. If your child seems stalled in that process, show them or remind them of that model that we just went over on the top of the second page of the lesson. Then you can start asking questions to kind of get their mind starting to think. Do you know the larger set? Do you know the smaller set? Do you know the difference? And then once your child figures that information, have them fill in those part whole circles. In this particular problem, the larger set is given as 170 and the smaller set is 119. So we are missing the difference. And then have your child build that equation to solve. The equation is listed in the lessons manual. Now, right underneath that equation, you're going to ask your child a very important question, which is, does this make sense? Ask him if the answer makes sense. This is a fabulous question for your child to consider as they double check their answer and making sure that it's correct. So many times, one of my kids thought they were using the correct operation, like plus, but after they solved the problem, the answer was way off. It did not make any sense whatsoever. It was supposed to be subtracting instead of adding. So for example, in this particular problem, if your child decided to add 170 plus 119, that would give them 289. And for this problem, is the mother 289 centimeters taller than her daughter? And just asking that simple question will help your child learn to evaluate their answer, make sure that they're on the right track. You will want to ask this question after every single word problem they do. All right, well, let's take a look at problem 3. This one's actually a little bit different. Again, start off though by having your child read through the problem at least 2 times, fill in the part whole circles, write an equation, and solve. But what is different about this problem is that we know the smaller set and we know the difference. So how do we take that information to get to that larger set? Well, we need to add. Now, if your child approaches this problem just like the other two and they're wanting to subtract those 2 numbers, don't correct them. Let them try to subtract those 2 numbers, 5 minus 4, and they'll get 1. Then ask that very important question. Does this answer make sense? Have your child read through that word problem again, which is, if Oliver has 4 pillows, can he also have just 1 pillow, which is your answer? Let them evaluate and learn to evaluate and correct their own mistakes. You'll continue this process on through problems 4, 5, and 6. Have your child read through the problem several times, fill in the part whole circles, and then build an equation and solve. When they finish, ask them if their answers make sense in the word problem and discuss any errors that they made. Now, there is not a math card game listed for this lesson, so you're going to want to pick a game that will keep up your child's math facts. Well, let's go ahead and turn to lesson 87. The first 2 paragraphs will be reviewing material that they covered in lesson 86. In the 3rd paragraph, your child will again be looking at the base 10 picture cards and answering the questions. The 4th paragraph are comparison questions. If your child needs to, you can write down those problems on the whiteboard so they can visually see that. Take a look at the section called Fewer or Less. This section will actually review and discuss comparison words. Then you're going to give your child worksheet 55, and again, you're going to be working through word problems together during the lesson. If you have a strong learner, you may want to see if they can solve these problems on their own and then come back together and discuss their answers. As with the previous lesson, have your child read through the word problems several times before they even start solving. Fill in the part whole circles, build an equation, and then solve. When they have completed the problem, ask them or have them ask themselves, does this answer make sense to this particular word problem? If you need to, you can go ahead and review that model that was shown at the top of the second page of lesson 87. Now take a look at the second page of the lesson in the explanation section right next to problems 3 and 4. It says this: problems 3 and 4 are designed to elicit deep thinking. Children learn much more when they spend time really understanding a problem than solving a plethora of similar problems superficially. Make sure that you don't give your child too many hints. Allow your child to struggle enough so that they can learn and retain the process of how to solve these problems. Only jump in when you are seeing your child's frustration really rise and not being able to move forward. And then only guide them by asking questions. Now, some questions that I would ask in this particular situation for these problems are, what do we know? For this problem, what do we know which team has more points? Do we know the larger set? Do we know the smaller set? Do we know the difference? Where do I put those numbers in the model? Usually just one or two questions gets my child back on track and thinking and figuring out what to do next. Have your child solve problems 5 and 6 on their own if they are able. Now, there is not a math card game listed for this lesson again, so you're going to want to play another math card game to keep those math facts strong. Let's go ahead and turn to lesson 88. If you have a lesson manual printed in 2015 or before, there is a correction in the lesson manual. If you have student worksheets printed purchased or printed in 2015 or before, the worksheet also has an error. So you're going to want to make sure you make those changes to the lesson manual and the worksheets prior to starting this lesson. Now, for this lesson, your child is going to need their math journal. And just as a reminder, the math journal pages are at the back of the student worksheets book. You will also be using the base 10 picture cards throughout the lesson. Now, the first paragraph of the warm-up is asking some thinking questions. If your child is stumped, have them write out the equation for the subtraction. Let me just read you the question. It says, how many equations are there for subtracting from 10? If your child is stumped, doesn't know, or they're just kind of guessing, have them write out each equation for subtracting from 10. Remember to include 10 minus 10 and 10 minus 0. Now, the second paragraph will have your child write down and solve several problems listed in the several problems in their math journal. The third paragraph asks questions that I absolutely love. I don't know if you remember me talking about this before, but I love this question. Who makes errors? Everyone makes errors. Everybody makes mistakes. And as I said before, use this time to encourage your child and let them know that mistakes are just a natural part of learning and that everybody makes mistakes. Now, the last paragraph of the warm-up will be working on place value. The next section, I'm going to hand your child worksheet 56, and you're going to work through the first word problem together using the base 10 picture cards and the place value cards. You will actually have your child solve this problem from left to right, which is backwards from how you learned to do subtraction problems. As you have seen throughout Right Start Math, concepts are approached in a variety of ways. There is not just one way to solve a problem. Having your child explore a variety of ways to solve problems will give them a better understanding on the topic. Now, because this is a new process, let me show you how to use the base 10 picture cards and the place value cards to show this first word problem. So this demonstration is how to use place value cards and base 10 cards to do the first subtraction problem in lesson 88. So we start with building our equation. We have 4,532, 4,534 is our problem. And we're subtracting from that number 3,123. All right, so now we got to use our base 10 cards. We need 4,000 of the base 10 cards, so we're going to do 4,000 here. Some of these may be upside down, others may not. 500. 3 10s, and 4. Oops, I'm out of space here. Let me adjust this just a little bit. There. So we start with 4,534 shown in our base 10. We are going to subtract from it 3,123, and we're going to start for this activity, we're going to start on the thousands. So we're going to subtract 3,000. So I'm just going to remove 3 of these base 10 cards. Now we're going to subtract 100. We're going to remove one of these base 10, subtract 2 10s, and 3 1s. And we are left with 1,411. And we're going to find that base 10 or place value card, those place value cards, 1,400, 110, and 1. Now, on the top of the second page of the lesson, there is another word problem that you're going to be solving together. Again, have your child read through the problem several times before attempting to solve it. Now, this problem is actually going to have some trading involved, so let me show you how this problem will work. Now, this problem is 4,858 minus 3,296. This problem is going to have some trading involved. So again, we start by building the problem using place value cards. We'll start with 4,850 or 5 10s and an 8. And we were subtracting from that 3,290 or 9 10 6. And then we're going to find the base 10 cards to support this number. So we're looking for 4,000, 800, 5 10s or 50, and then 8. We'll squish these in here. And again, for this particular activity, we are subtracting from the left, which is different from how we all learned in school. We want to show our kids that there is always more ways to solve problems than just a traditional method. All right, so we're subtracting from this number 3,296. We're going to start with a 3. So we're going to pull out 3 of these thousands. 200, 9 10s. Oh, well, we don't have 9 10s. So what can we do? Well, we can trade. We know that 10 10s is equal to 100, right? So we can take out one of these hundreds and replace it with 10 10s. All right, so I'm going to remove this one, and I'm going to replace it with 10 10s. We used to call this go to the bank. My kids loved it. We were trading in $10 bills for one $100 bill, etc. Now, obviously, you can't see all of these, so I'm going to pull out what we're subtracting from the top and then scoot the rest up. So now we need to remove 9 10s. So we have 2, 4, 6, 8, and then 9. And then we are left with, I'll slide these on up. We are left with those. So we subtracted our 9 10s, and now we need to subtract 6. So that's these over here. And we are left with 1,560 or 6 10s 2. So we find that with the place value cards. 1,562. The final problems on the worksheet, your child is going to solve on their own. Now, notice the number of the problem is actually the first digit in the minuend in the equation. So problem number 4 starts with 4,000. Problem number 6 starts with 6,000, and so forth. Kind of an easier way to find out which problem they're working on. Also, I want you to take a look at the final note in the explanation section. It says, it may not be necessary for your child to do all 9 of the problems. If you find that your child is running out of mental energy, stop where they are, and then you can continue working on the remaining problems the next day. If your child nails these down, you do not have to do all of these problems. Now, there is not a math card game listed for this day, so you're going to want to pick a game that will help your child keep up those math facts. Well, that's it for the week. If you have any questions or concerns about a lesson, or if your child is struggling with something, give us a call or email us. We're here to help. I look forward to seeing you next week as we cover lessons 89 to 92. Have a great week, everybody.